Raven's Vail is a dark fantasy horror anthology podcast that may contain explicit language and thematic elements not suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Raven's Vail, a dark fantasy Southern Gothic horror anthology podcast set in the shadowy world of the Deep South. A convergent reality situated around what most of humanity has accepted as the truth. Obscured from human eyes, Raven's Vail is a mystical sanctuary intended to preserve the existence of its immortal inhabitants. The Mekori, commonly referred to as witches, have been hunted since before written history. The witches of the Highlands fled persecution to a new land that would come to be known as Appalachia. In these parts, you should always be leery of the things that scare witches. The veil is thin tonight, family. Let's see what darkness lies beyond.
Well, hey there, family. We're so glad you joined us today. We've been missing you an awful lot. Now that the scary season's over, things can get back to normal a little bit. Well, as normal as they can be at Ravensville. Well, go ahead and pull you up a seat, because we need to get back to finding out what happened after Sybil, Petra, and Aunt Ruby Bea defeated that old Nix. So settle down now, family, and listen up. I'm pretty sure you're going to get an earful. The sun had barely risen, casting long shadows across Thistle's Keep as Aunt Ruby Bea glinted back to Ravensville. Sybil and Petra gathered in the cozy kitchen. Petra was busy fixing breakfast. They'd gone to bed tired, too tired to eat dinner. The scent of herbs and freshly brewed tea filled the air, a stark contrast to the tension that lingered from the previous day's battle. Palmer had been called away on an emergency, and Jude had woken Aunt Ruby Bea before Petra and Sybil had awoken to have her return at Palmer's beckoning. Sybil nervously sipped her tea, her mind replaying the events of yesterday. Petra, sitting beside her, tried to mask his concern with a reassuring smile, but Jude's piercing gaze left no room for comfort.
That was too close.
Jude began, his voice stern and full of concern.
The Nix is a creature of pure darkness. It thrives on fear and chaos, and Roll encountered it head-on. It shouldn't have been there. It was too early. You're lucky you're alive. What's more, you're lucky Ruby Bea was there with you. I'm gravely concerned. It feels like a purposeful attack on you.
Jude sighed, resigning.
Sybil, you've exceeded my expectations for your training. You've done things other Mekori took years to learn.
But his words wandered off. Jude let his frustration and sorrow choke out the words he wished to say. Petra nodded solemnly.
It was terrifying, but Sybil's fireball spell
didn't work at first.
Sybil interjected, her voice tinged with frustration and embarrassment.
I don't understand. I practiced it countless times and I still can't get it right.
No, Sybil. I wasn't being critical. I mean, sure, I'm concerned that you're having problems. What happens if you're by yourself and Vrock attacks? I'm thankful for you. Your fireball spell was what saved us.
Jude's expression softened slightly.
Magic isn't just about practice, Sybil. It's about focus, intention, and channeling the energy within you.
He paused, letting his words sink in.
When you were trying to cast the spell, your mind was scattered. You need to find your center, no matter what chaos is around you. I've told you this before. With the Sun Ascension, the key is connection. You mostly connect to other spells through excitement and curiosity and intuition. Your Fireball spell is an expression of anger, and you don't connect to it when casting for practice.
Sybil looked down at her hands, the memory of the failed spell replaying in her mind.
But then something changed. It was like something took over.
As Sybil said, Jude nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes.
Yes, Ruby Bea told me when you finally focused, she could feel something within you awaken. She felt an old magic, and that you somehow managed to tap into it. It evidently turned the tide of the battle. But we must ensure it wasn't just luck.
It was terrifying.
Petra admitted, breaking the silence.
When the Knicks came after me, I thought I was a goner. But whatever happened to Sybil, it was incredible.
Sybil blushed at the praise, but remained thoughtful.
I need to understand what happened better. I can't let it control me by accident again. We need to be prepared for anything.
Jude smiled, a rare and comforting sight.
You will, Sybil. With time, patience, and training, we'll be prepared. The Nyx was a formidable foe, but it's nothing like Vrock Crocell. But it showed us where you need to improve.
Jude sighed again, overcoming some inner turmoil.
I feel like your time at Thistle's Keep is coming to an end.
The fireplace crackled warmly in the cozy kitchen at Thistle's Keep. Sybil and Petra looked at each other with concern and a little sadness, contemplating what would become of their friendship when Sybil left Thistle's Keep. Jude, sensing the concern, had already known that Petra would be going with Sybil when she left, leaving him once again all alone in Sunfire Hall. Putting aside his fears and encroaching loneliness, Jude made a decision and prepared to recount the darkest chapters in Mekori history. The morning outside was still and cold, rain coming down in a steady drizzle, a perfect backdrop for the chilling stories he was about to tell. Jude sipped his tea thoughtfully, his gaze distant as he began.
I know the two of you are exhausted from yesterday, so I've decided today's lesson will be about Vrock Crocell. It's about time you knew what we were all up against, especially you, Sybil. As the horrid demon tells everyone it meets, he's the lord of the fifth circle of the void. His story is intertwined with the human monster Godfrey Allstone, perhaps the most lethal enemy the Mekori have ever known.
Sybil leaned in closer. Her curiosity piqued.
Who exactly is Vrock Crocell, Uncle Jude? It seems like everyone knows him, but no one ever talks about him.
Vrock Crocell,
Jude began,
is a creature of unimaginable power and darkness. The fifth circle of the void is his domain, a place where fear and chaos reign supreme. This is nae place for the living, nor anything other than the void touched. That's what we call demons. The fifth circle is a realm of perpetual darkness and despair, cloaked in an impenetrable darkness that is cold and hopeless. Only the faint, eerie glow of cursed souls and demonic fires occasionally pierces the gloom, casting grotesque shadows that dance across the twisted terrain. The ground is a mixture of jagged rocks and blackened earth, shifting or unstable. Chasms and fissures open without warning, revealing bottomless pits that seem to lead into deeper, more terrifying depths. It's interlaced with endless corridors that seem to shift and change, leading lost souls deeper into labyrinthian darkness. These corridors are filled with traps and illusions designed to keep the inhabitants in a perpetual state of fear and confusion. Strewn throughout the nothingness are the remnants of ancient structures, long abandoned and decayed. These ruins are said to be the remnants of civilizations that dared to challenge Vrock Crocell and were subsequently annihilated. He somehow collects the detritus of their civilizations into his realm to reflect on his own might, the way a trophy hunter hangs the racks of a particularly large stag. The landscape is riddled with pools of viscous black liquid that pulses with a life of their own. These pools are reservoirs of pure malice, corrupting anything that comes in contact with them. Vrock Crocell thrives on these elements, growing stronger with each soul consumed by terror. And at the heart of his nightmarish realm sits the throne. Carved from obsidian and adorned with the skulls of his vanquished enemies, the throne exudes an aura of pure dread. From this throne, Vrock Crocell oversaw his domain, his presence a constant reminder of the dark power and terror he wields. But he hasn't been able to sit in that throne for almost 15 centuries. Godfrey Allstone was a legendary witch hunter known for his unparalleled knowledge of magic and his relentless determination to destroy the Mekori. I don't know what put him on his warpath, but he was the most magically adept mortal the Mekori have ever encountered. In a twist of fate I'll nae understand, he was in love with a Mekori named Letitia Gregor, my great-grandmother. Letitia was married to Owly Gregor, my great-granda. They were one of the original families that settled Ravensvale. Godfrey and Letitia were involved. He convinced her to glint back to Caledonia and bring him back to Ravensvale. Once he'd been there, he would always be able to return. He was one of the few humans to ever learn to glint. She betrayed all of us. Luckily, they were discovered, and wards would be devised in particular to keep him out. Have Ruby Bea tell you about anti-glint warring sometime. Godfrey escaped back home, but Letitia was left to answer for her betrayal. Her magic was taken, and she was banished to the wastes. However, when Godfrey found out Letitia was gone, what little restraint the man had was eroded away, and he became crazed by his obsession to destroy all of the Mekori. Allstone believed that we were evil, that our powers came from the darkness. Driven by desperation and a sense of duty, Godfrey embarked on a perilous quest to summon and enslave one of the most formidable demons known to exist, Vrock Crocell, Lord of the Fifth Circle of the Void. All Godfrey knew was that this demon was renowned for his immense power and the chaos he could unleash. He thought to fight fire with fire, or, as this case may be, darkness with darkness. Godfrey began by gathering rare and powerful ingredients for his summoning ritual. The ritual itself was complex and dangerous, and the magic residue left after the summoning can still be viewed with a simple scrying spell. It required precise incantations and sigils drawn with enchanted chalk. As he chanted the ancient words, the air around him grew thick with dark energy, and the ground trembled. From the shadows, Vrock Crocell emerged, his presence filling the room with an aura of fear and dread. I asked the two of you near go and experience the echoes. They weigh down your soul, and you will never sleep the same. To bind Crocell, Godfrey needed to perform a series of even more dangerous rituals. Using the talisman forged from the essence of silver, blessed under a harvest moon, and the blood of a pure-hearted creature. He drew a circle of containment. As Crocell raged against the magical barriers, Godfrey invoked a binding spell that tethered his own soul to the demon's essence. This spell was both ancient and forbidden, known only to a few who dared to delve into the deepest secrets of dark magic. The process was excruciating for both Godfrey and Crocell. The demon's raw power surged against the binding, testing the limits of the spell. Godfrey's will was put to the ultimate test, as his hate for the Mekori and his love for Letitia empowered him to maintain unwavering focus and strength. The room was filled with the howls of the demon and the blinding light of the clashing magical energies. In a final act of desperation, Godfrey made a pact with Crocell. He offered a portion of his own life force to solidify the binding, ensuring that Crocell would obey his commands. This sacrifice left Godfrey weakened, but it granted him control over the demon. With Vrock Crocell under his command, Godfrey unleashed the demon upon the Mekori. Crocell's dark powers devastated our numbers, shattered our fortresses, and consumed them with whirlwinds of chaos and destruction. The Mekori, who had once felt invincible, were utterly annihilated by the might of the enslaved demon in each and every interaction. Though victorious, Godfrey had paid a high price. The binding took a severe toll on him, leaving him a shadow of his former self. He died, sickly, frail, and alone on his deathbed before he had released the demon. And because you have to be very careful on how you word a soul pact, Vrock Crocell can ne'er return to his realm. He remains here, trapped among the mortals, and compelled to eternally torment the Mekori. The tale of Godfrey Ellistone and the binding of Vrock Crocell became a cautionary legend, a reminder of the perils from wielding such dark and dangerous powers. The Mekori have adapted. We learned how to become invisible to the demon, but he always finds us eventually. Our words keep him at bay, but the prophecy speaks of the way. A young Mekori woman who wields all of the magical ascensions, even divine, the ancient magic.
Petra gasped.
That's what they expect of Sybil? To beat a monster that's killed thousands alone?
Sybil's eyes widened, and Jude rushed to speak before her panic could continue to grow.
Nay, lad. No one says she has to do it alone. She'll have us there by her side, but for whatever reason, Nerira can interfere, and to break the soul pact that keeps Vrock Crocell here, Sybil will be necessary.
On the other side of the world, flashes of magic exploded in the early pre-dawn hours. Valori sprinted through the darkest hours of the night. Personal light spells and night vision enchantments guiding Mekori through the rough, ice-slickened terrain. The northern reaches of the Appalachian Mountains make a cold climate even early in the fall season. A monstrous creature dropped from the tall pines just as Palmer and his Valori escort raced below. A heavy, crunching blow crushed Palmer's left arm, and he was swung around, his wand flung into the darkness of the cold night. Jagged, splintered teeth tore into Palmer's neck and shoulder just as the escorts tackled the lanky abomination off of the high priest. Immediately, the Valori escorts were sent flying back through the air, dropping gore and spraying blood. Half a dozen coruscation spells cracked through the frigid air as Valori blasted lightning into the creature. The monstrosity howled in distress. Chunks of bark and a foul, goopy substance that had replaced other vital fluids arced through the air and vaporized simultaneously. The creature stumbled forward and glinted away. As the fireplace crackled, Sybil and Petra sat in quiet reflection, the story of Vrock Crocell and Godfrey Allistone etched into their mind. They knew that their own path as witches would be fraught with challenges, but they also understood the importance of wisdom and caution in the face of darkness. A blinding flash of light burst into the room, and with it, Aunt Ruby Bea appeared, having glinted out of nowhere. Her face twisted in horror. She stumbled forward, then crumpled to the floor. Her breaths came in harsh, uneven gasps. Each one sounded more labored than the last. Her eyes, wide and unfocused, staring blankly into the distance as she lay there, whispering unintelligible words. The whispers seemed to carry the weight of ancient incantations, haunting the air with their cryptic urgency. Aunt Ruby Bea's normally strong and commanding presence was now fragile and vulnerable, leaving a chill of dread hanging over the room. Sybil and Petra rushed to her side, their hearts pounding with fear and concern. They exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to do next, as they desperately tried to make sense of Aunt Ruby Bea's mysterious and alarming state. Well, alrighty, family. That's where we're going to leave you today. I'm so glad you visited us for a spell and discovered what's going on in old Ravensvale. Be careful and don't wake up those young'uns now. They have to go to school in the morning, so take them on to bed. If you like what you've heard in this episode, make sure you tune in to our next episode to find out what happens to Miss Sybil and Petra next. Who knows, we might get a glimpse into what happened to Aunt Ruby Bea, too. Now, family, you adults have a few chores to do. Go on over to ravensvale.com and see about doing your chores on social media. Follow us on all the social media platforms that we've made available just for you folks. Like, listen, subscribe, and follow wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you don't mind, leave us a good rating and a kind comment. You can find the Ravensvale podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you haven't already, just search for the Ravensvale podcast. And again, make sure you hit that follow button to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Oh, and by the way, tell a friend about us, won't you? Until next time, family. See you soon.
The Ravensvale podcast is a production of Small Raven Media. Today's story was written, directed, and narrated by Ed Bolton Greer. The voice of Sybil Ashford was performed by Kristen Newby. The voice of Petra Hundley was performed by Presley King. The voice of Jude Grigger was performed by Jared Bolton Greer. Audio engineering and sound design by Nick Devan at Nicky D Sound. Copyrighted 2024 Small Raven Media. All rights reserved.